Good afternoon and welcome everyone. My name is Danielle Stackis and I'm the Associate Director of Alumni Relations at the Robert H. Smith School of Business. We're excited that you're able to join us for today's webinar, From Spaghetti to Synchronicity, How to Grow Smart, presented by Wendy Merrill of StrategyHorse Consulting Group. This webinar is part of the Smith Office of Alumni Relations Professional Development webinar series, in which we hope to provide thought-provoking and valuable content that will help alumni like you achieve your personal and professional goals. During the webinar, we encourage you to use the chat box to share any questions or comments you might have for the presenter. Please feel free to submit questions throughout the session, and Wendy will address them at the end of the presentation. Wendy is the founder and chief rainmaker of StrategyHorse Consulting Group. She started StrategyHorse in 2013 to help professionals and their organizations achieve smart and sustainable growth through the application of practical business development strategies. Prior to forming StrategyHorse, Wendy worked in executive, sales, marketing, and business development capacities in the insurance and financial services space. Wendy graduated from the University of Maryland in 1994 with a BA in the history of art and a minor in Italian. She lives in the Baltimore area, and when she is not spending time with her family, Wendy dedicates much of her time to mentoring entrepreneurs. And now we'll get started. Wendy, take it away.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining. So today's webinar is about the importance of an organization to create a sound foundation in order to accomplish smart growth. Most of us at one time or another have approached business development in a throwing spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks sort of way. This means disorganized methods, uncoordinated and random efforts, no measurement of success, no expectation or understanding of a reasonable return on investment. I like to always say, growth for growth's sake is stupid. Everybody wants to grow their business, and so we'll try just about anything and everything that our marketing savvy peers, friends, neighbors, and vendors suggest. In our quest for success, we throw money at advertisements, sponsorships, event attendance and hosting, fancy, expensive website design, and trade shows. None of these are strategies, however. They are tools, and without a plan, they lack coordination, efficiency, and real metrics. Plus, they're really expensive in terms of time, money, and even credibility. Growing smart starts at home. Instead of initially making promotional investments outside of our businesses, we should instead aspire to develop brand ambassadors organically on the inside. So what does this look like? KoolAid. Getting the whole organization to drink the KoolAid. So what's your company's KoolAid? It can be best understood by answering these questions. Have you clearly defined the KoolAid flavor, the brand, the culture? Does your team really like drinking this flavor? Do they believe in the why behind the company? Are they consistently thirsty for more KoolAid? Do they buy in and take ownership of their individual role in growing the organization? Who's in charge of preparing and distributing the KoolAid? Is leadership's role in driving business development clear? Have you asked how your team members take their KoolAid? In other words, what's their definition, their individual definition of success, and how can you help them to achieve it? Setting up a KoolAid stand and successfully handing out samples requires 5 things. Clear leadership. Is the vision crystal clear and organized? Has leadership demonstrated their commitment to growth initiatives and supporting their team? Transparency. What's in the KoolAid? In other words, what's the value being provided to customers and clients, and how does the company make money? Empowerment. Is the organization making the proper investments in professional development and training to provide its people with the skills and confidence necessary to achieve success? Recognition. Does the organization understand each team member's unique value, their strengths, their fears? Teams cannot be managed as monolithic groups of people. Their members must be recognized for their unique contributions. And accountability. Is there a system in place to effectively manage execution and measure success? When the Kool-Aid flows, the organization grows. How do we ensure that our team is in branding lockstep? It always starts at the top and trickles down from there. If leadership is not seamlessly committed to every growth initiative and branding exercise, how can they expect their team to execute on their vision? I always like to say, a bad apple doesn't just ruin the bunch, it kills the tree. If there's a manager, partner, or C-suite executive that is not totally on board or sabotages the organization's growth in any way with a lack of professionalism, they can bring down the whole show. Discord at the top always dilutes the Kool-Aid. Managers that are not in lockstep with carrying out the organization's goals are toxic to growth. And leading by example is most important. It's not enough to talk the talk, they must walk the talk. How do we define success? Well, there are 3 different buckets that must be clearly delineated. First being corporate. What are the universal growth goals for the organization? What do best clients really look like? And have these profiles been properly communicated? What makes the company profitable? Does the team really understand this, or is it a big secret? I find that it's often a secret in many companies. The second bucket is team. What is the best way to work together based on the strengths and challenges within each team or department? What's the best way to establish trust within each department or team so that they can best support one another in complementary ways? The third bucket is individual. Managers must create a safe space for their team to unveil their true motivation. And by safe space, I mean that they cannot fear repercussions if they're too honest with their managers about what they need. They need to know that it's a safe place for them to express what they really need and what they want to accomplish. In other words, success for them may mean making less money, but having more time for family or travel, which seems to be happening more and more in the workplace. They want to take a holistic view. Leadership must understand this and be prepared to support each individual in their aspirations. So how do we enable success? We create a detailed roadmap to growth must be created with care. We communicate. The plan must be thoughtfully shared with those expected to execute it, as well as their managers. We coordinate. All departments within the organization must break down departmental silos and integrate efforts. And we effectuate. A system must be established to measure success and provide accountability. Creating the plan. The why shall drive all. An organization must be clear on why they are in business. Employees must be clear on why they come to work every single day. A detailed roadmap is essential, but it must be realistic. Expecting people to do things that they are not motivated to do will definitely yield disappointment. All growth efforts must be shared throughout the organization. They must be measured to determine their efficacy and then reflected upon to see if a change in course is warranted. Communicate, communicate, communicate. Goals don't mean anything unless they are clearly and consistently communicated. Universal goals are demonstrated in onboarding, frequent pep rallies, I like to call them, meetings to bring people together to get them excited about the brand and the vision and the direction the company's moving in, a front-facing metric system that evaluates each person's contribution to execution of the vision, and the size and depth of investment made in the team to provide them with professional development training and support. Individual goals. Success does not fall solely on leadership's shoulders. Team members must be responsible for self-advocacy and speaking up for what they need and what they want. Managers are then responsible to support their people and actively manage the investment of time and money in each person's participation in the overall growth initiative. Coordination. This is a biggie. Too many firms have rigid silos in place. Marketing doesn't work with sales, for example. I like to say that that's the original War of the Roses, which is strange and doesn't make sense. Administration doesn't like finance. Operation disagrees with HR, and so on. Smart growth requires careful coordination and harmonious relationships between these teams. I see so many companies where nobody is working together. Effectuate, making it happen. We've got to engage at every single level. Networking, for example, or business development is not just for salespeople. Admin support staff are the ones who make the magic happen internally, and they should definitely be enlisted in any and all growth campaigns. Efforts must be recognized. They have to be acknowledged and rewarded. A little praise and feedback, a little slap on the back goes a very, very long way, especially with people who are not used to getting that kind of credit. Redefining and measuring success. It's not just the top line revenue that should be examined. Smaller successes must also be noted. In other words, the new business development activities, such as more networking or pushing oneself out of their comfort zone, these are things that are really important and they have to be acknowledged. Being nimble and adapting. Be sure and review the efficacy of the plan and seek to constantly improve it. Most of my clients that I work with, we don't just set a plan and then just go with blinders on and don't review, come together, manage progress. We've got to figure out if things are working, and if they're not, we have to be prepared to change course. Finally, and this is maybe one of the most important things, we have to celebrate progress. All success, no matter how small, must be appreciated. A little thank you or pat on the back goes a very long way, as I mentioned earlier. So some organizations have put in a system of gamification. You know, they make it fun, they have contests, they reward people for even small little steps that they take to promote the organization's brand. This is really important, and these are things that have to be woven into team building exercises. Promoting smart growth is really simple math. You add a primed army of internal ambassadors to a carefully crafted, pragmatic business development investment. And you get smart, sustainable, satisfying growth. Thanks for attending. I guess this is a kind of a brief, quick lunch. I'm happy to take questions and comments from the audience.
Right. Thank you, Wendy. As she mentioned, we'll go ahead and take some questions from you all. You can type them in the question section of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, we have one question. What strategies would you recommend for if you're not in a leadership position, going to leadership and convincing them to get on board?
That's a great question. I'm a pretty direct person, and I feel like that's the way most of us should be. If you go to your manager, whoever's in charge of developing you or supervising you, if you go to them and you have an honest and open conversation, of course, talking about the fact that you're trying to help the company, maybe even quantifying your advice, your ideas in terms of how much money it might make the company or how much success they might glean from it. that's the best approach, I think. And frankly, dare I say, if your manager or supervisor is closed-minded, doesn't welcome your comments, thoughts, or ideas, it may not be the best place to work.
All right, thank you for that. We have another question. Can you review the commitment by leadership about sharing business development with non-sales staff?
Review the commitment. So can you repeat the question? I'm not sure. I want to make sure I answer it correctly.
Sure. It says, can you review the commitment by leadership about sharing business development with non-sales staff?
Sure. Hopefully I'll answer this relatively directly. I talked about an idea of, you have to get everybody kind of rowing in the same direction. And I think it starts, I talked about KoolAid. I think it starts, honestly, when companies are interviewing for positions. That's the first chance that a recruiter or manager has to share the flavor of the KoolAid. Let's say it's cherry KoolAid, which of course is a reflection of the culture, the values, the brand of the company. When someone likes the cherry KoolAid and they come in for another interview, they're given another sample, they really like it, they're given an offer, and then magically they show up at their desk on their first day and they start to work. Onboarding is a really important part of this process. Some companies are implementing this, but not enough, frankly. And onboarding is just a formal opportunity really to say to somebody, thanks for joining. You avoid buyer's remorse, so to speak, by giving them another sample of the KoolAid, and you say, here's our cherry KoolAid, this is what we stand for, this is what we're doing, and your role is really important in helping us to achieve our goals. It's critical for leadership to connect with each and every new hire to make sure that they're totally on board and show them that they're being supported on an individual basis. Then I really like the idea, besides of individual connections with your managers throughout the year, I really like the idea of this pep rally, which means it's an all-hands meeting that really should happen more than once a year, where you bring the whole company together. It's not really necessarily a team building exercise. It could be, but it's really more an opportunity for leadership to come out and reveal their commitment, display their commitment rather, to common goals, where the company is going, and then give specific examples and opportunities where everybody, down to the person who answers the phone, what they can do to help to grow the company. Is it a certain way of answering the phone? Is it a certain way of engaging with a customer or client? Is it attending a particular event and having the information, being armed with enough information to deliver a great elevator pitch, or having an agenda to make sure that they're promoting the brand properly, etc.? I hope that answers the question.
He responded and said yes.
Okay.
That did answer the question. All right, we have 3 more that have come in. Can you discuss the differences in this strategy in a trade environment such as construction versus an office setting?
It's a great question. Of course, it's tricky when you've got people in multiple locations. It's very tricky. This is where setting up an effective system for communication is essential. Some organizations have set up intranets, so they've got stuff, going back and forth via email or messages, and that's not always conducive to a construction environment where people are not able to, to check in electronically during the day or look at technology a lot. So I think, once again, back to that all hands meeting, I think it's really important to try your best to bring people together, because that's really where the magic happens. And also, it's critical for leadership to constantly be connecting with their teams wherever they may be. If they're in the field, in the office, they need to kind of connect with them on their own turf and make sure that they're effectively communicating with them where they're meeting their needs and they're really addressing their individual motivation levels.
All right, our next question is, what could be key metrics to pay attention to when growing a consulting business?
Well, I'm going to take it from the business development perspective, since that's kind of my area of specialty. And, you know, I think I like to talk about best clients. And, you know, we all want to grow, so we measure revenue. Oh, we've grown by 30% or 50% or 2%, whatever it is. But I would prefer to focus on the value that you're actually providing to your clients, to the community, to referral sources, etc. And the way you do that is you solicit feedback. You ask for help, you ask for advice from your best clients, the ones that really appreciate you, the ones that pay well and pay on time, the ones that remain loyal. Find out what it is about your approach or your practice that really creates value for them, and then ask them what that value is. Ask them to quantify it. That's the best way to really understand the impact that your organization is having. And I think that's critical to measure that. And oftentimes we get so focused on how much revenue we're bringing in or what our head count is that we kind of forget why it is we're really doing this. So I think it's always important to consistently check in with those that rely on us, with those that feed us, to make sure that we are providing them with enough value. And if we're not, then we need to find ways to do so.
Great. We have one more question. If you are working in a larger organization, can you speak to or offer tips on the development of generating an internal brand or KoolAid at the local team level?
Well, as I said earlier, it always starts with leadership. It starts at the top and it has to trickle down. And I wish I could say that it doesn't matter and that people at every level, even lower levels of the company, can do things on their own. But the fact is they really can't. They've got to have buy-in from the very top. Oftentimes, when I have a new client engagement, let's say I've been retained to work with a group of rising stars within an organization, and it doesn't really matter what kind of company it is. The rising stars, the leaders of tomorrow, they're really excited, they want to be developed, they're invested, they're committed, but the senior leadership today may be kind of apathetic. They don't really care. They're like, whatever, you know, if we'll invest in this if it's going to make everybody else more productive. The problem with that is that this kind of investment won't stick around. They won't see much ROI from it because at the end of the day, the folks at the top are the ones who have the check writing ability, and they're the ones who have the power to make things happen or not happen. And if they don't totally buy in and aren't consistent with their support of everybody on the team, no matter what level, they're destined for, I don't want to say failure, but it's kind of a 2 steps forward, 1 step backward kind of a thing.
Okay, it looks like we covered all our current questions. Are there any last minute questions that anyone has? If you do have them, please type them in. Please type them in now.
And also, if anybody wants to connect and individually and ask a question just to me personally, please reach out, send me an email, give me a call, or go on my website and you can sign up also for, I have a mailing list where you can get business development and smart growth tips directly.
Great. So Wendy, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up?
No, I appreciate everybody's time and joining us for this quick lunchtime chat. And if I can be of help or a resource to anybody, please don't be shy. Reach out. I'd love to talk to you.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you at our next webinar, From Data to Decisions, Analytics in Today's Business World, happening on Wednesday, November 8th at noon Eastern. A recording of today's webinar will be emailed and also posted on our Smith School alumni website. We hope you have a wonderful day, and go Terps!